Asato masakkamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityo ma amritam kamaya abhirapirma eti rudraya te dakshinamukam enamam ahityam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the ever-changing to the unchanging. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Guide us evermore. Enlighten us with thy loving presence. Peace, peace, peace. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So the topic is Swami Adbhutananda, glimpses of Swami Adbhutananda. So this is part of a series that I've been doing in St. Louis on and off for some years now, going through the monastic disciples of Sri Ramakrishna and picking incidents from their life, going to first-hand accounts from people that were present at these particular times. And the whole idea is to try to get the flavor of what it was like to be around these great souls, to be in their immediate presence. It's a matter of choosing reports which give you the setting and the feel and the dialogue and what Swami Adbhutananda or Swami Vivekananda or Raja Maharaj looked like and how they spoke and the tone of their voice. We read their words, but you don't hear their voices, you know. These details kind of make it more immediate. So the whole idea is to spend time with them as much as possible after the fact. They're long gone from their physical bodies. So that's the idea. That's what we're doing. And we'll pretty much go through things chronologically, but not quite. So let's get started. Swami Adbhutananda is the only monastic disciple of Sri Ramakrishna who was uneducated. Not only was he uneducated in the sense of having no school education, he was completely unlettered. Sri Ramakrishna himself tried to teach him Bengali. And the lessons went on for 3 days, and Sri Ramakrishna attempted to teach him the first letter of the Bengali alphabet, which is? And he kept saying, ah. Back and forth for 3 days, and finally, God incarnate gave up. He couldn't teach him the first letter of the Bengali alphabet. So when we say Swami Adbhutananda was unlettered, he was literally unlettered. But being completely unlettered did not impair his ability to serve his spiritual master, Sri Ramakrishna, or to experience the highest spiritual truth. Swami Adbhutananda experienced Nirvikalpa Samadhi at least twice in his life. Now, I say at least twice because it's known from his own narration that that is the case, but he might have experienced it at other times but not chosen to say anything. You just never know. In his mature years, people from all walks of life came to him for spiritual inspiration, for advice, for counsel, just to be around him. Simple people from the lower classes of society felt a special attraction to be around him. Here was a holy man with whom they felt no barrier, no awe in his presence. Swami Adbhutananda made them his own. Long after Sri Ramakrishna passed away, in 1889 or 1890, Swami Adbhutananda was staying at Basumati Printing Company. It was owned by Upendranath Mukherjee, one of Ramakrishna's householder disciples. And he's also known in our order as Latu Maharaj. So I'll use those terms interchangeably. So Latu Maharaj would spread his blanket on the wooden crates that held the paper for the presses and meditate at night while the presses ran. And the noise didn't bother him. If you've ever been in a printing company and heard the presses run, that's quite something. The noise didn't bother him. And the Swami was criticized for associating with the pressmen, who were known to drink and gamble. When challenged about it, Maharaj said, "They're not hypocrites." He always told the truth. And he always told it in a straightforward, simple manner that anyone could understand. So that's how he judged people. Vivekananda says, take a person from where they stand and from there give them a lift. Well, in order to be helped out, we have to admit where we stand. So he says, they're not hypocrites. Anyone with that qualification can improve. Everyone will realize God. Doesn't matter. They're not hypocrites. He showed his affection and sympathy to simple, unostentatious people, regardless of their station in life. Sophisticated, educated, successful people came to him as well. Judges, businessmen, etc. One of these, Chandrasekhar Chattopadhyay, wrote an extensive Bengali biography in 1940, about 20 years after Swami Adbhutananda passed away. It's called Swami Adbhutananda as we saw him in English, and runs about 450 pages. I want to quote from Mr. Chatterjee so that you can get a sense from one of Swami Adbhutananda's devotees what he was like in his mature years. Swami Adbhutananda did not initiate in a formal way, but he acted as a spiritual guide to many. This is Chandrasekhar's narration. Whether in Kashi or in Calcutta, whenever a complex religious or spiritual problem was raised, Latu Maharaj used to make it crystal clear in his simple half-patois language. He spoke a rural dialect of Bihari and Bengali, both rather ungrammatically. And every once in a while he mixed an English word in. So his speech was interesting in his simple half-patois language. Sometimes such words and expressions would come from him, which in their verbal beauty cadence and import would startle us. You see, what came from him was often original. It wasn't spoiled by a lot of reading or education. See, what came from him was often an original expression of an idea, and sometimes a very deep idea. His face and body, see, glimpses of Swami Adbhutananda. This is what I'm talking about. His face and body would be aglow with enthusiasm that kept his listeners spellbound. What was still more striking was a flow of thought that appeared unending. Garbed in simple language would come out thoughts that were the combined result of deep thinking, wide experience, and direct realization, a rare combination of heaven and earth. Whatever he said had the impressive power and wisdom running through it. There would always be deep universal love and an endeavor to take each and all towards the final goal of human life. As we would listen, our minds, unbeknownst to ourselves, would soar higher to an unknown region of peace and bliss, far above the trials and tribulations of our normal lives. The glow of smile that used to illumine his face during those talks is still our loving treasure. Hiding his deep spiritual knowledge under the guise of illiteracy, knowledge born of the grace of his divine guru, and worked up by his own tireless austerities till the end of his life. He used to give the fullest satisfaction to seekers of truth and devotion, himself suffused with angelic love. He would mellow our lives with its nectar. Finding fault was foreign to him. Latu Maharaj wore a peculiar magnifying glass to look at another's virtues. A drop of virtue appeared as an ocean to him. He could not bear any talk about others' defects. To criticize others within his hearing was impossible. Seeing this fault in the character of the present author once, he said, "It is only impure people who see faults and impurities in others. To the pure ones, others' virtues appear in glowing color. You have not the eyes to see virtue in others. You have learnt only one lesson, to find others' faults. This comes from jealousy, and it's retarding your spiritual progress. Inside is jealousy, malice. Outside, you wear religious marks on your forehead, and you hold a rosary in your hand. Of what help will these outer marks be to you?" No mincing of words. He gets right to the point. One may observe in the remarks his strong whip hand, but how much love and sympathy and goodwill was hidden, people did not know. Only those who tasted the strength of the whip hand had the luck of tasting the love that moved the hand. Latu Maharaj had two ways of imparting instruction: indirectly through jokes and jibes, and directly through scolding. Like Sri Ramakrishna, he could make people roll on the floor with laughter. When he was in a merry mood, everyone was in a merry mood. So we've already had a taste of the direct method. Indiscriminate imitation of others, which he used to say, copy, use an English word, others, idling away one's time, harming others, all of these required his direct, unmincing manner. His pointed, forceful words, where did they gush from at such times we do not know, acted on our hearts like the jabs of bayonets. But instead of drooping, our spirit used to be roused up, our latent powers aroused, enabling us to overcome those defects which he so vigorously pointed out. We were roused to a new consciousness, determined to lead nobler lives. All these sharp reproofs had but one aim, our spiritual upliftment. Therefore, they were so sweet and loving. Swami Brahmananda once said to a devotee, "Why are you so afraid to go to Latu Maharaj? How many sadhus can you find so austere, so strict in observing the guiding principles of a sadhu's life? Yes, he has kept up a rough exterior, but that is to discourage crowds. But inside him, it is all mercy and kindness. If you mix with him just a few days, you will find him free of egoism, even free of the egoism of being a sadhu. It is due to the great merits in previous births that a person gets the company of such a sadhu." This is Swami Brahmananda speaking. Girish Ghosh says about Latu Maharaj, "People speak of moonlight as stainless and soothing. There may be a stain in the moonbeam, but our Latu is absolutely without stain. A breeze blowing from his direction purifies everything it touches. His blessings are unfailing in their effect, are productive of the highest good. Sadhus will find in him their ideal exemplified. Householders will learn to tread the path of self-restraint." Swami Vivekananda's younger brother, Mahendranath Datta, wrote, "In the personality of Latu, there dwelt a superabundance of power, spiritual power, acquired through bone-breaking spiritual practices. It is this power which manifested itself in various ways, in lucid explanation of the deepest spiritual truths. The seekers of truth were simply charmed. Philosophers and scholars bowed their heads before its power. We observed his gradual development into love personified. He could no longer discriminate between high and low, between the deserving and the undeserving. Even to persons who were well known to be wicked, Latu would bestow his love equally, would pour his sympathy without reservation. I noticed it. Outwardly, he remained the same old Latu, but inwardly, he changed into a great saint full of peace and bliss and bathing all in pure love of transcendental beauty." So how did he get there? Let's start at the beginning now. Swami Adbhutananda was born to an impoverished shepherd and his wife in the Chapra district of Bihar. Bihar is north of the present West Bengal and south of and bordering Nepal. His given name was Rakturam, meaning, O Rama, protect this child. And this name is often given to a boy whose elder brother has died in infancy, as a protection for the next one, that he might live and prosper. And that was the case in Latu's family. His elder brother had died in infancy. We don't know his last name. Rakturam's parents died before he was 5, and he was left in the care of a childless uncle who was better off financially and loved the boy. Although the uncle earned well, he seems to have spent better. Running into debt, he had to sell off his house and all to his creditors and leave the village for good. Now, we already have 3 names: Swami Adbhutananda, Rakturam, Latu Maharaj. So it seems like every time he moved from one place to another, he got another nickname. So we'll go through them, because they'll all come up in the narrative. Rakturam, Raktu, Latu, Latu Maharaj, Laltu, Leto, Nato, and Swami Vivekananda's favorite appellation, Plato. They had such a sweet relationship. They had such a sweet relationship. When Swamiji died, Latu Maharaj was in Calcutta, and everyone flocked to Bellarmine except him. And someone went to him and says, Swamiji died, aren't you going to come? He says, no one except the master loved me, like Swamiji. I can't go. Yeah. And then when Swamiji came back to Calcutta from America, he'd do all kinds of interesting, kind of strange things. He didn't go to him. He appeared in the crowd, you see? And Swamiji had to pick him out of the crowd. He said, I just wanted to see if you'd changed. And when Swami Sardananda came back from America, and Swami Sardananda was the most highly educated of the direct disciples. He was in medical school when he left the world. And always very tip-top, you know, and always kept everything very nicely. So Latu Maharaj would come into Swami Sardananda's room and start talking to him. He'd say, oh, bye, and he'd have just filthy feet. He'd get up on his bed and go like this and put his feet on this pristine bed. And Sardananda Maharaj said, what are you doing? Oh, I just want to see if America had changed you. You know, it's like his simplicity was just so inimitable. You just never know what he was going to do, because it was all so. It came from his absolute purity. Whatever was here was here. There's no distinction between his outside and his inside. Well, anyway, I'm off the track here. As long as Raktu was with his uncle in the village, he remained a carefree boy, roaming about in fields and pastures with the shepherd boys, sometimes chasing cattle, sometimes playing with boys. Sometimes, however, he'd be missing, and very often after anxious searches, he'd be found in some neighboring village. Not neighboring, close neighbor, sometimes very far away. He'd really wander off. Of course, he had to grin and bear the scoldings stoically. Soon, however, his uncle came to understand that scolding, or even beating, would have no effect on this boy, who would have his own way, come what may. Moreover, love played its part, the uncle's loving heart left Raktu a free boy. So these two characteristics were lifelong. He had an incredibly strong will. But it could be affected through love. And that was the beauty of Swamiji's relationship with him. You know, Swami Adbhutanananda, Swami took him with him on tour when he went into North and West and Eastern India. And one day he said, okay, I'm going to have a lecture today. I forgot which city it was in, and you'll have to come with me. I'm not going. I won't understand a word. He says, aren't you my brother? Yes. Won't you come with me? Okay. But I don't have you've got a silk robe and a nice, outfit. I don't have that. Okay. And so Swamiji gets in his outfit, one of his outfits, and comes down to his ankles because he's much shorter. He said, that's okay. He said, but I don't have a turban like you. So Swamiji winds a turban around him. And they go off. You see, and he says, okay, get in the coach with me. No, I'm going to ride with the coachman. And this kind of interplay, but it's two pure souls, and Latu is just fine on his own, but Swamiji won't let him go. No, you have to come with me. You have to come with me. So, as predicted, Latu Maharaj didn't understand a word of it. And Swamiji asked him afterwards how he liked it. He says, I didn't understand anything. But what do you think? He says, you're only saying what the master said. You're the only one that understood me. That's right. Beautiful, just beautiful, these interchanges. Anyway, I'm off the topic again. So these two things, just an incredibly strong will, but any kind of, you could cut into it with love. Latu Maharaj was very reticent about himself. What we know of his childhood slipped out unawares in the course of casual conversation. He once said, do you know, I used to move freely with the boys tending cattle. How guileless and unsophisticated they were. You can't get real joy unless you be like one of them. This is the key to unlock his childhood. In fact, he learned life's lessons in the school of nature in the company of guileless shepherd boys. His well-knit, short-statured body followed his mind freely, enjoying the beauty, grace, and fragrance of the nature around him. And he had not the ill luck to enter the precincts of the village primary school. Nature provided his schooling. We don't know the mental condition of the uncle and Raktu when they left the village. But once when expressing sympathy for a man in a similar stance, he inadvertently said, dear one, does one like to leave one's hearth and home? When I left as a child, actually he was an adolescent, I myself shed tears. You have your friends and relatives. I had none. Still, I felt so much pain. It is but natural that you feel this so keenly now. He's expressing sympathy for this guy. So the uncle and the nephew migrated to Calcutta looking for work. Through a friend of the uncles who worked, a friend from the village, who worked at the State Medical College in Calcutta, the uncle found work for Rakturam as a servant in the home of one of the professors, Ramchandra Datta. This marked a new beginning for Rakturam. We don't know how old he was when he came to Calcutta or how long he worked for Ramchandra before meeting Sri Ramakrishna in 1879 or 1880. But I want to talk a little bit about his life with Ramchandra Datta, whom he called Ram Babu. So Ramchandra was a medical doctor, a chemist, a pharmacologist, a teacher at Calcutta Medical College, and he held the position of chemical examiner in the English government. He was a member of the Chemists Association of England. So he was a prominent man in his own right. And he was a self-made man. He extracted and he was a researcher as well, he extracted the active ingredient of a medicinal plant that was approved by the government as a remedy for blood dysentery. And he was also an older cousin of Narendranath Datta, who became Swami Vivekananda. Ramchandra was noted for his affectionate and hospitable nature, and his household noted for the same. Raktu found the atmosphere very congenial. Ram Babu had a name as a man of sterling character. He himself was prompt and ever ready to carry out the orders of his superiors, and he expected the same from his subordinates. He possessed a penetrating intellect which unmasks the pride and hypocrisy underlying verbal modesty or humility. But wherever he found the true ring of the heart, his heart filled with reverence. It was expected that Raktu would develop into a lad of active habits, obedient, honest, and dutiful. Nor did it take long for the family to notice these qualities in their new servant, who became endearingly called Laltu. In his new master's house, Laltu was to do chores for the lady of the house and the girls, to purchase greens and vegetables, to take the tiny tots for a walk, to bring their master's lunch to the office, and now and then to collect bills from the shops, all of which he did with the utmost alacrity. Besides this, he had a personal liking for wrestling and building his body. So he was a wrestler and a bodybuilder. Now, as a servant, some members of the household didn't look kindly on these hobbies, but Ramchandra, his master, was generous. He said, let the boy do that. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. Let him be strong and healthy, and, you know, don't dampen his spirit. So, Laltu it wasn't just in his latter life that he didn't mince words. This was a lifelong characteristic. He quickly made a name in his master's house for his forthrightness. Unpleasant words would sometimes come from his mouth, as Laltu's rustic mind would not mince matters. One day, a friend of Ram Babu's suspected that the boy was pilfering money when sent on errands. He called the boy inside and said, tell me, lad, how much did you pocket today? The reply came quick and strong. Sir, I may be a servant, but you may know it for certain, I am not a thief. This was, this kind of directness was not expected from servants, and Ram's friend went back to him with a complaint about his servant. And Ram said, no. He said, he's right. This boy will never steal from us. The boy is not a thief or a cheat. Whatever he needs, anything, he asks the lady of the house, and she gives it to him. So we have this pen picture of Laltu, and what he looked like on such occasions, and that's from Mahendranath Datta. This is this description of the peculiar stance Laltu would take on these occasions when he was fiery. On such occasions, the pose of a wrestler became very prominent. His stiff, straight neck turned a little towards the object of his criticism, his chin a little raised, his eyes wide open and shooting fire, the walls of the nostrils considerably swollen, fingers closed and joined in a fist, his words gushing out in stutters of half Bengali and half patois of the Chapter district of Bihar, would paralyze his target to complete silence. So, Ramchandra was an atheist. Now that might seem strange. His great enthusiasm for science and modern knowledge made him an inspiring lecturer, but they also made him an atheist. In his own words, "In those days I didn't believe in God. We considered that everything that happens, changes, or dissolves does so by the force of nature. We were rank materialists, and we held the view that eating, sleeping, and creature comforts were the highest goal of human life." Ram at that time was fond of debating with others about God and religion and found great satisfaction in defeating his opponents. The ardor of this atheism lasted about 5 years. The death of his young daughter, though, came as a terrible shock. And a great change came over his life. His grief-stricken heart was searching for something meaningful in his life and life in general. All of a sudden he noticed some clouds passing overhead, driven by the wind. They quickly disappeared. And then Ram asked himself, where do they come from and where do they go? Does God exist? If so, can he really be seen? This changed in 1879, November, when Ramchandra met Sri Ramakrishna. And it was an about-face. And Latu couldn't get enough of Ram's narration of his conversation and what went on in Sri Ramakrishna's room in Dakshineswar. He just drank it in, and he begged his master, can't you take me? I want to be, he called him Paramahansa Mahashaya. I want to meet Paramahansa Mahashaya. Can't you take me with you sometime? So, at his earnest request, Ramchandra took the young man, his servant, to meet Sri Ramakrishna. This first meeting is described by Ramlal Chatterjee, Sri Ramakrishna's nephew. One day, I saw Rambabu brought a servant boy with him. He was short-statured, strong, and stout. His appearance, though a little plump, was indicative of great strength. I did not know his name. I saw the lad standing on the western veranda. Rambabu was inside the room, perhaps searching for Sri Ramakrishna, who was not there. The master came to the veranda, humming a tune. Hearing this, Rambabu came out of the room. By the time Ramakrishna had reached the veranda, he asked Ram, "Is it you who has brought this boy? Where did you get him? In him I see the signs of a saint, a holy man." Saying this, Thakur and Rambabu entered the room, but Laltu waited, standing there outside. I asked him, "Why don't you enter?" He was thinking whether he should or not when Thakur called him. I did not go inside. What took place inside the room, we know directly from Ram himself. The moment, this is Ram speaking, the moment I got up after bowing down to the master, I found Laltu catching hold of Sri Ramakrishna's feet and placing his head on them. Thakur, so he's there, with his complete abandonment, holding on to the feet, his head on the feet. And while this is going on, Thakur started talking to me with the boy still there at his feet, as if he did not take any note of the boy at all. Eventually, Laltu got up and stood in front of him with folded palms, I assume like this, all the while drinking in his words. Thakur, as usual, was smiling and talking, but now and then casting his eyes on Laltu. He said, "Sit down. Why are you not sitting?" Our conversation in the meantime touched on the topic of the category of jivas who are ever free and never come under the clutches of Maya. Thakur said, "These eternally free souls, through all their incarnations, never lose sight of their true nature, never lose sight of their relation with the Lord of the universe. They're like a fountain whose mouth has been blocked by a stone. A mason seeking the mouth of the fountain removes the stone, and immediately water gushes out of the fountain beautifully." As he said this, Sri Ramakrishna all of a sudden touched Laltu. At once there was a tremendous welling up of emotion in the boy. He lost all consciousness of his body and the outer world. It seemed as if he had been transported to an unknown region. All the hair of his body stood on end, his voice broken and inarticulate, and there was an incessant flow of tears down his cheeks. His lips were quivering, with my mouth agape in wonder at this unprecedented surge of emotion in my sermon. I was simply paralyzed. When, however, I found that Laltu went on crying in that state with absolutely no sign of abating, I came to my senses and said, "That is true, Master, no doubt, but will he not stop crying?" He was afraid of losing his servant then and there. The Master touched him again, and Laltu became normal. So this was the first meeting, I don't know that Laltu was ever referred to by Sri Ramakrishna as an Ishwara Koti, but that's the implication you get from this conversation, because he's saying there are these Ishwara Kotis who are never touched by Maya from life to life, and it's like this, and it's like this. Demonstration. Show and tell. But, so this was, so Laltu, needless to say, was drawn to Sri Ramakrishna with tremendous attraction. But he had to wait a year and a half, about a year and a half, before he could actually go from Ram's house to Dakshineswar and serve Sri Ramakrishna. And he had to wait until Hridai left. And there was a period in this year and a half of about 8 months when Sri Ramakrishna was in Kamarpukur. And during this time, Laltu felt an intense pain of separation. He lost interest in his duties at Ram's house. And I want to give you an incident from this period. And this is again narrated by Ramlal. Laltu used to visit Dakshineswar even when the master was away at Kamarpukur. Ramlal one day saw the boy sitting still and dejected by the riverside and crying. He thought perhaps that Rambabu might have scolded him for some neglect of duty, and wounded at heart, he was crying. Ramlal said, "I saw the lad sitting by the riverside. Seeing him weeping, I asked him why. He said he was feeling very sad at the absence of Thakurji. His idea of the master was quite astonishing. He thought there was nothing impossible for Sri Ramakrishna. He could do anything if he but willed it. Under this impression, he was calling on the master so that he might appear to him physically. He told me that he had heard from someone that the master was eternally present at Dakshineswar, and that even when he had gone to his native village, he could still be present there at Dakshineswar, and you could meet him there. With this idea in view, the boy had been sitting there from noon to dusk. Finding it getting dark, I asked the boy to go home. You'll be surprised to hear, he said, I am quite sure Paramahansa Mahashai is definitely here, and I will not leave without meeting it. As many times as I said, no, he's gone home, he's in Dakshineswar, he's in Kamarpukur. So many times did he repeat, no, you do not understand. Paramahansa Mahashai is definitely here. I kept quiet and went away to attend to my evening duties. Later, I took some prasad and returned. When I went there, I was surprised to find the boy bowing down, touching his forehead to the ground. Mystified, I kept quiet. After a couple of minutes, when the boy saw me standing in front of him, he was surprised and asked me, where did Paramahansa Mahashai go? Taken aback, I could not answer. I handed over the prasad and went away to the temple. Latu was not an educated person who knew from his education that this could not happen. And he didn't have to be re-educated to know the truth of it. So even from the beginning of their relationship, Latu was quite remarkable. I want to talk about his training, his life with Sri Ramakrishna. Let me know if I'm going too long here. When Latu Maharaj came to serve Sri Ramakrishna, he was in his critical teens, a period of life when the surge of emotions can be violent. Moreover, he came from a class of society where morals were loose, drinking was universal, glasses passing from fathers' hands to sons, and vulgar words and deeds were not deemed to be so. It is no small matter for a boy coming from such a background to turn his mind away from all temptation and pass his days at Dakshineswar, scaling the heights of renunciation and austerity under the watchful and penetrating eyes of the strict disciplinarian that the master was. His determination to rid himself from all weakness was so thorough that no austerity to him ever proved too difficult to go through, and no obstacles too hard to surmount. A word from the master promptly evoked a promise, churned from the depth of his personality, and that promise stoically kept to his last breath. So as an example, we'll look at sleep. From his childhood, Latu was a heavy sleeper. Moreover, in his teens, he started wrestling and taking strenuous physical exercise. As is usual with wrestlers, he slept long hours. When he came to Dakshinaswar to live at, and he continued to take wrestling lessons after he arrived at Dakshinaswar. When he came to Dakshinaswar to live with the master, his work increased. Naturally, he would fall asleep in the early evening. The master noticed it and said, "What is this? It's hardly dusk. At this mystic hour, when day meets night, you're sleeping. I have never in my life seen a sadhaka behaving like this. During these hours, you should be losing yourself in the thought of God. And here you are sleeping. Get up, quick." These words woke Latu from sleep as one guilty of a great offense. He hung his head in shame. But unlike others who would have repeated it later, he made this promise: "Never will I sleep during these hours," and this promise kept until his last breath. At Varanagore, Latu Maharaj had a serious attack of pneumonia, and Swami Saradananda, as was his wont, and being a medical student, he was nursing him and following the physician's injunctions strictly. And Sarat Maharaj would not yield to Latu Maharaj's request to help him sit up at dusk so that he could meditate as instructed. This is much, after, the master died. Latu said, "Leave off all those idle talks about your doctor's injunctions. What do the doctors understand? It is my master's order, and it shall be obeyed under all conditions. If you do not help me sit up, mind you, I shall have to take the help of Mahavir." For some reason, Sarat had to leave the room for a few seconds, and when he was returned, he was astonished to see Latu Maharaj sitting up in bed meditating in that condition. Now, Sarat Maharaj was also an illumined soul, and as we know, illumined souls are very stubborn. So he started reasoning with him. "Latu, brother, have you not heard the master say that during illness one should be guided by the doctors? And have you not seen the master strictly following the doctor's injunctions when he was ill? Why, brother, do you go against the doctor's injunctions? It doesn't make sense. Look at the master's life." Latu Maharaj brushed this aside. "I do not know argument. It is his order, and it must be obeyed." Much later in Varanasi, during his last illness, no one could ever think that in such a physical condition, any human being could ever sit up unaided. And this was what he actually did. So strong his determination to follow the master's orders to the letter. Unique was the master, and wonderful is his disciple. And that's one of the names of Adbhuta, wonderful. Another incident regarding sleep. Latu fell asleep in the first quarter of the night. Now this was already after dusk. The master could not brook that either. He not only woke him up, but said, "If in the first quarter of the night you fall asleep, when will you meditate? It is not yet 9, and you're sleeping here like a log. You should have meditated the whole night long, such deep meditation that you don't notice when the day breaks. Instead, Your eyelids are heavy with sleep in these early hours of the night. Have you come here only to sleep? Oh boy. Latu later narrated, how to express the deep sorrow that seized me? I felt, what a donkey I must be, enjoying the company and guidance of such a saint and wasting my time in sleep. I splashed water on the eyes and face and walked briskly for some time on the bank of the Ganga. When the body got heated sufficiently, I returned and sat near him. But oh, the insistence of sleep. Again I dozed. Again I went out for a vigorous walk. Thus did I fight sleep the whole night. The next night also, the struggle continued. It was indeed a hard struggle. I suffered a lot, even during the day. Continuously, the battle raged on day and night. After 2 years' hard struggle, Latu conquered sleep. In this sense, he could keep his body perfectly fit for meditation and prayer with as little sleep as he liked, and at any hour of the day that he liked. Sleep at night, of course, was completely forsaken for the rest of his life. Adbhutanandaji. Such determination was also there with regard to food, brahmacharya, and liquor. The life as an attendant to Ramakrishna. Latu often used to say, to serve anyone, my dear, is really a difficult job. He who has failed to serve his parents, can he serve his guru? How often has the servant to bear with harsh words, abuses, and threats? The master never spared us. Had we taken those scoldings to heart, we couldn't have served him. When Latu first went to Dakshinaswar, Govapma and the other women disciples of the master had not yet come. Holy Mother was passing her days all by herself. One day the master saw Latu meditating on the bank of the Ganga, motionless as a log. He said, "Fool," not mincing words, "Fool, little do you know that the object of your meditation is inside the concert tower, and she is not getting anyone to knead the dough for the chapatis." Latu flushed with embarrassment. The master had never asked Latu to serve Mother. When that day he was asked unexpectedly to serve her, Latu regarded himself as blessed, and with quick steps appeared at the door of the Nahabat along with the master. Ramakrishna said, "This boy is pure in heart. He will knead the dough, roll the chapatis, and do errands for you." The master was taking Latu up through the path of service, and the boy, Latu, had already purified himself sufficiently that by 1881 he was able to serve Holy Mother. The master showed Latu that one who would tread the path of service should not only serve the master wholeheartedly, but devote himself to the service of the dear ones, those whom the master held dear as well. Living in the last years in Varanasi, Latu Maharaj referred to this incident and said, We cannot conceive of the difficulties Mother had to pass through during those days at Dakshineswar. In that too small room, she passed months and years. Nobody knew this. When she used to take her bath in the Ganga, no one knew. I have never seen a person so seized with the passion for dispassion. How blessed am I that the Master took me to her, who made my life fruitful. To serve her? What could I do? On the contrary, it was she who bound me down with love celestial. She had nothing to expect from us. It was through her grace that we obtained her for a mother. His relationship with Mother was quite extraordinary as well. So I mentioned Latu had Nirvikalpa Samadhi twice that we know of. The first was in the company of Sri Ramakrishna. So this conversation happened later in Varanasi. One devotee asked Latu Maharaj, what is the difference between ecstasy and samadhi? In reply, Latu Maharaj said, in ecstasy, the sadhaka witnesses the interplay of ananda, bliss. In this, the sadhaka is the taster, and bliss is the object of taste. In samadhi, that is nirvikalpa samadhi, the sadhaka becomes bliss, and there remains no one to taste it. What a beautiful statement. He continued, do you know, sadhakas see light, etc., hear wonderful sounds, but these experiences should not be made much of. They are only to strengthen the sadhaka's faith. When the body consciousness is lost, when the heart becomes pure, then only one understands that beyond these experiences of light, etc., there is another world, whose news, reason, and thought cannot bring, and which, when experienced, cannot be expressed in words. One day I was passing my hand gently over the Master's head when all of a sudden opened the gate of that world. What I saw there, eyes could not grasp. What I tasted, palate could not taste. Yet, these were experiences. Devotee, did you get, Maharaj, the news of that world before that? Latu, no, not before that. And this was probably the actual incident. It was narrated by Swami Ramakrishnananda, Shashi Maharaj. One day Latu was gently stroking the Master's head. A few moments after, I saw his hand stop moving. His whole body had become stiff. He was in deep samadhi. I called him 4 or 5 times. See, they're both Sri Ramakrishna's attendants during the last days. Latu handled the privy. I mean, he cleaned up the bedpan and all that sort of thing, and Ramakrishnananda was but they were both get very close personal service. So they're both there together. His hand stopped. His whole body became stiff. I called him 4 or 5 times. There was no response. I touched his body. No sensation. The Master said to me, don't disturb him. Can't you see? His mind. Do you think it's in this world? I stopped. I took my seat by the Master's side. and started stroking the master's head. Again, another conversation. He's asked about Jada Samadhi, which is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Maharaj, what is meant by Jada Samadhi? Jada Samadhi is that in which the I consciousness is completely effaced. It is what the Jnanins experience. There is another kind of Samadhi known as Chaitanya Samadhi. In this, the Lord is experienced, and the sadhaka is the experiencer. The Lord is sweetness, and the sadhaka, the taster thereof. So it's another way of stating what we heard before. And the second experience of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, this is from Latu's narration later in life. Don't think that once a sadhaka has experienced samadhi, and by this he means Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he can have it thereafter any number of times or whenever he wants it. There are many aspirants who have tasted it but once. There are many more who cannot reach it even once in a whole lifetime of striving. The Master has given me endless grace. After making me struggle for only 8 years, he graciously lifted me up to that state again. So this was 8 years after the first experience that we just read. One day I was seated on the bank of the Ganga when I saw a light coming out of the waters of the river. It grew in size until it at last filled the sky, the earth, and the space between them. Inside that infinite effulgence, there were numberless other lights. Seeing this, I lost myself completely. I do not know what happened next. However, when I returned from that wonderful realm, I remained in a state of ecstatic joy. What bliss! It cannot be expressed in words. The heaviness of my heart had disappeared completely. I felt that the whole world was saturated with bliss and bliss alone. Now I'm guessing, but I'm guessing that the heaviness of his heart was due to the pang of separation, not being in the Master's presence after his death. And this helped him kind of just regain himself for the rest of his life. He didn't, when the Master was bliss, this is bliss, okay. Something like that, just my interpretation. So Latu didn't spend a lot of time in the monastery. It was too restrictive. He'd go to Basumati Press. He'd stay there with the pressmen, and some of them became his devotees. But he was always around, and people would go to see him wherever he was. And he had his devotees, even though he didn't initiate people. And he also served the order, even though he wasn't there in kind of an official capacity, and this is one of the incidents. Once there was talk of asking a monk of a Calcutta branch of our Math to leave the organization. The monk in question heard about it and came to Latu Maharaj and went on speaking to him against the head of that particular branch of our order. Latu Maharaj narrated to him this incident. In the early days of Bellarmad, one day Brother Babaram could not get up in time. When this was reported to Vivekananda, to Swamiji, he asked someone to go and ring the bell near his ears. The novice did as ordered. Still, Brother Babaram did not stir. He kept sleeping. Then Swamiji himself went and woke Brother Babaram up. At tea time, Swamiji was talking with Brother Babaram. Look here. We're the organizers of this monastery. If you don't observe a rule, the rule was you have to get up at like 4 or whatever and meditate. If you don't observe a rule, why will others do so? You'll have to follow the rules more strictly than others. You must scrupulously observe them. This will encourage others to do the same. Brother Babaram heard it all quietly and said, yes, today I did not get up in time. I understand it. So, do one thing. Give me a punishment. Hearing this, Swamiji became grave. Babaram, why do you say so? Could you think of it? I to punish you? Seeing tears in Swamiji's eyes, Brother Babaram's eyes also glistened with tears. The news reached Rakhal Maharaj, who became anxious and immediately intervened. Coming to the scene, he said, why all this fuss? Shedding tears, all this? Do we not have it that anyone who fails to get up in time will have, on that day, will have to beg his meals outside the mosque? He'll have to do madhukari. Brother Babaram was excited and said, Raja, perfectly right. Today I will beg my food, madhukari. And then Latu returns to this monk. He says, don't you see the depth of their love for one another? One breaks a rule and asks for punishment. Another bursts into tears at the thought of punishing his brother. The third meted out the punishment, and the breaker of the rule, ecstatic to receive it. If such love were not there, no monastery could run. Where is that kind of love among you now? Does one who breaks a rule ask to be punished? Or when so punished, does he feel happy to receive it? Now what I see, so common among you, when there is talk of punishment, you leave the mott in a huff. You leave the monastery. This is very bad. If you stay at the mott, you must observe its rules and regulations. But no, you will be there and you won't follow the routine. This attitude is dangerous. This attitude breaks the organization. Hearing this, the monk in question understood his own fault, went back to the center that he had come from, and begged pardon of the monk in charge, asking for punishment. Needless to say, they were happily reconciled. So, he was remarkable. You know, he might have changed that monk's life, you know, forever with that one interaction. So we're going to skip to Latu Maharaj's when he left the body. Swami Turiyananda, this is from his letter, Swami Turiyananda's letter of April 25th, 1920. I don't know who he wrote it to. You must have received the wire informing you about the passing of Latu Maharaj. Such a final exit from this world is rarely seen. Of late he was generally indrawn. From the beginning of the disease he was found always in meditation, his eyes fixed at the junction of the eyebrows, completely withdrawn from everything of the external world, yet fully alert and conscious, entirely inside, entirely oblivious of the world outside. His attendant was Pashupati. Now and then he used to call Pashupati. He took food from his hands. When sometimes he would not like to eat, Pashupati would say, "All right, I won't eat either." Then Latu Maharaj would take a little. But the night before his passing, he refused to take anything. When Pashupati said he also would not eat, out came the reply, "Don't take." And we understood that he was untying the last knot of Maya. The next morning when I visited him, I saw his temperature was high. I felt the pulse. I could not feel any beat. The physician came and examined the heart, but could not get any sound. He was in deep meditation. Temperature 102.6. But there was no change in his consciousness, though there were no external movements. Other days he would sit for meditation, but today he could not. I took leave of him at 10 a.m. and promised to come again at 4. When I finished my bath and meal and was about to take rest, news reached me that he passed away at 12:10 p.m. I immediately asked the Shevashram people to send a wire to you and Sharat and started for Hardarbag House. Reaching there, I saw him lying on his right side with left hand resting on the side pillow, as if he were sleeping. When I touched his body, I found it as hot as when the fever was on. His face was bright and calmer than ever. At 4:30 p.m., his body was seated, cross-legged, and after performing puja and aratrika, was brought downstairs. When he was put up, seated, and puja, etc. were being performed, the expression on his face was so beautiful that I cannot express it. I have never seen his eyes so full of peace, mercy, and bliss as they were then. His eyes in life were generally half closed, but now they were wide open, and what love, joy, and what equanimity and fraternity were beaming out of his eyes beggars all description. The beams of bliss coming from his eyes appeared to be blessing all and a gladsome farewell. The scene was wonderful, charming, touching one's heart to the core. The Lord, it appears, has shown us this scene in order to fulfill the true significance of his name, Adbhutananda, one of wonderful, unprecedented bliss. When his body and bed were covered with new sheets of cloth, and the body decorated with garlands and sandalpays, the entire scene and atmosphere assumed such sublime beauty that whoever saw it was filled with amazement and cried out automatically, "Blessed, blessed is the soul indeed." Unique and unprecedented was this death-conquering march of our Latu. All who gathered there, neighbors and others, Hindus and Muslims, had their satisfaction of seeing him for one last time. Those who have seen the body of Latu Maharaj beaming forth supreme bliss all around on this occasion were deeply impressed with the reality of the spiritual world. Blessed is his guru, blessed is his disciple, our Latu Maharaj.
Sivananda, Vivekananda Maharaj, like that, but coming in contact with them, we got all the knowledge.
Well, Ramakrishna was a unique teacher. He saw, at first sight, he said, I see the marks of the sink in it. And the mind wasn't enclosed in the brain. I mean, it was like a glass case. You could see the past samskaras and all that. So according to the samskaras of of those who came to him, he taught them. So everyone was taught a little differently. With Swami Vijnanananda, he said, don't even look at the picture of a woman. And when Vijnanananda says, you went to America and now you're back in India and you're traveling around with all these women, and that wasn't the master's teaching. And Swamiji says, you follow the teachings that the master gave you, I'll follow the teachings that he gave me.
Thakur used to give examples, like mother give all children accordingly.
Yeah.
Depend on their health, their taste, everything. So that way, Guru also, all the disciples give different kind of teaching that suits them.
Yeah. Yes, he taught Swamiji the path of knowledge, even though Swamiji belittled it. Even though this is your path, I'm going to teach it to you. But not the other direct disciples. It's not that they weren't qualified for Nirvikalpa Samadhi, but they went through a devotional path and got Chaitanya Samadhi and then Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Anyway, you see, when this works, you feel like you were there. You were there with it. And that's really the whole idea. Yeah. There's a Danish philosopher named Søren Kierkegaard who was a hidden yogi. I mean, when he died, his hair, he had horriflation, his hair stood on end, his beatific smile came over his face. But people did, that wasn't his reputation. He was a hidden yogi. But one of the things he said is, his Ishta was Christ, of course. And he said, you must become contemporaneous with Christ. I mean, the distance of time and space must disappear. That's what he was saying. And you must feel that you are in his immediate presence. And then you get the benefit of that. You're uplifted. So that's the whole purpose of these glimpses series with the direct disciple. Huh?
He was beloved of Andrew Maharaj, Sivananda,
Yeah.
Swami.
Let me see if I've got it while they're preparing lunch, and see if I've got different things that might be of interest to you. Because I skipped quite a bit, and still I went way over time. So a devotee asked Latu Maharaj, he says, about Ramakrishna's last illness with the cancer. Did you not feel sorrow, Maharaj, to feel the master in such, to see the master in such pain? Latu Maharaj said, did Sri Ramakrishna have pain? Did he not say, let the body and its ailments come to terms, if they will? My mind, you be at ease. Never did I see him suffer. Sometimes he was so full of bliss that the hair of his body used to stand on end. I have seen many times that his joy overflowed on all sides while his body was suffering terribly. When the bodily pain would not allow him to speak, I have seen even then he would not cease explaining spiritual matters by signs. How to describe my boy, these wonderful scenes. When some outsider would come, he would show how great was his suffering. That very moment, if some of us would enter the room, we would see him absolutely free from his ailments. You just try to understand this. If those sufferings were real to him, would it have been possible for him to infuse so much joy in us? To you, people are nothing but the body. Therefore, when the body suffers, you say the man suffers. But it was altogether different with him. With him, man is the spirit within, not the body. Otherwise, do you think that brothers Lauren, he called Naran, Lauren, brothers Lauren, Kali, and Tarak, who loved him so dearly, could leave him in that condition and go away to Gaia to perform austerities? No. Yeah. So everything he said is so unambiguous, you know? It's so straight. So this is from Mahendranath Datta, and he gives a pen picture of Latu Maharaj that he observed at about the time, or shortly after he got his first taste of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. In writing the memoirs of Latu Maharaj, Mahendranath Datta has given us a pen picture of the wonderful transformation of the personality of this illiterate boy of the Chapra district during this period. Quote, I observed that Latu was sitting on the same carpet with others and talking with them on equal terms. Formerly, he had added the honorific Babu when speaking to Naran or Rakal. In other words, Naran Babu, Rakal Babu. He's speaking to someone who's on a higher level with that honorific. Using the honorific Babu, speaking with Naran, Rakal, and others. Now he was using the intimate thou. Is it to me? To me. I gave a start when I heard him say to me. And I went on observing him for some time. It took me no time to observe his total transformation. His face had changed. There was no sign of subservience, no hesitation, no fear in his face. In fact, the face was beaming with joy. There was a force and courage in his heart. In his voice there was gravity. The old life was gone, gone forever, and a new life had sprung up in its stead. And along with it had come a new fire in his eyes, a new mien, a new gait, in short, a new glorified personality. It spontaneously came out of my mouth. Ah, what a transformation. Yeah. Anyway. There are 450 pages if you're interested. And in Bengali, I suppose, it's a good translation into English, in that the Swami who translated it was a very deep soul, and you get the flavor of those deep insights about these deep spiritual truths that expressed in this kind of original way. So you get that. It just needs a little bit of editing, yeah, so that it's, the expressions are a little bit more, the style just needs to be worked on a little bit, not the substance. But it's a great book.